Hello, can you hear me? Oh man. Okay. Well, okay. So that's my assistant helping me out. So Cap Jones talked about whether if you got an accident about a year ago, whether that's too late to do anything with your case. And the question is typically no. If you've been in an accident and it's typically if you're an adult and you've been in a car accident or any case where you've been injured by someone else's negligence, you typically have 2 years from the day of the incident to file a lawsuit. Um, but we were talking, there's certain exceptions to that. One of the big exceptions is that if you're hit by a government entity, say you have a case against the police or whatever it is, a city garbage truck rear-ends you, there's some sort of claim against the government. You only have 6 months to make a claim, and then 1 year from the date of the denial. So in those cases, you have a lot shorter time because the law is written to make it hard to sue the government and get damages from them. So typically, you have 2 years against a private entity. Again, for a case in California for a negligent defendant, you have negligent personal injury lawsuit, 2 years typically. If it's a government entity, you typically have 6 months and then 1 year to file a lawsuit from that date they deny the claim. So it's more complicated. Minors, say I just had a case, a client talked to me about their daughter's case. If you're a minor and you're involved in an incident or you have your child's involved in a car accident, something like that, you have it's a long deadline. You don't have to do anything really until they're adults, until they turn 18. That's when the deadlines kick in. So there's not really that time pressure if they're a minor, but once they turn 18, then you have to follow the statute of limitation rules. So a case that's a year old really isn't that big of a deal typically. There's a caveat to that. If you say you got rear-ended about a year ago and you got no medical treatment, didn't do anything, and now you sign up with us, the insurance companies look at it as like that you're really not that hurt, because if you've been in an accident and you had no medical treatment for over a year, and now you're signed up with a lawyer and all of a sudden you're hurt, they typically frown on that and they're gonna probably deny the claim or minimize the damages on your case. So it's better to get a lawyer right away as soon as a car accident happens or accident happens. All right, who's this? What's up, Steve? What's going on? Send me some cases, bro. And I was in a car wash but didn't go to the doctor. But now I'm in pain and need to seek medical care. Not a car wash, car crash. Sorry, I'm looking at I need some glasses. I was in a car crash, but didn't go to the doctor, but now I'm in pain, need to seek medical care. Who pays for that? So simple. In California, if someone was negligent and caused your injuries, whether that's in a vehicle crash, a slip and fall, dog bite, whatever it is, someone else's negligence caused your injuries, and you didn't go to the doctor right away, it's not the worst case. It's not uncommon for accident symptoms to set in later. We just did an intake about an hour ago, and car accident happened a couple of days ago. They didn't see any doctors, but all of a sudden they're in a lot of pain. It's very common, especially like in soft tissue whiplash cases, that you don't feel like you're okay after the incident or that night because your adrenaline set in. Typically that kind of pain sets in a day or two later. So if you didn't go to a doctor right after a car crash, it doesn't mean you don't have a case. You just want to make sure you go to a doctor and minimize that gap in treatment. The longer there's a time and gap from the day of the incident to the day you seek a medical treatment, the more the insurance company thinks you're lying and they don't think you're credible. So it doesn't kill your case at all, but you want to go to a doctor as soon as you can and minimize that gap in time. What mistakes do people make in the first 24 hours that ruin their case? The most common one is talking to the insurance adjusters. The insurance adjusters, even people are always like, oh, I have Progressive, I have State Farm, they're all state, I'm in good hands. And the reality is you're not. Their whole business model, their businesses are designed to deny claims, to minimize claims, because that's how they make their profit. So whenever you get on the phone with the insurance adjuster and you feel like it's someone you trust, it's someone I pay for my premiums, or everyone's looking out for you, they're really not. Those calls are recorded, so they're going to ask you about your injuries, and it's not because they care. It's because they're looking for anything they can do to lock you down and minimize your claim. For example, if you call an insurance adjuster, a few hours after a car accident, and you tell them, "Oh, I have pain in my neck and I have pain in my back," okay, and that's like, "No, everything else is fine. I'm fine." You tell the adjuster, "I'm good." Or then say 2 days later, you figure out your knee's jacked up and your knees, something's going off your knee or shoulder. Well, you told that insurance adjuster, she has you on recorded line that you were fine. So then when you hire a lawyer and all these other injuries come out that you're experiencing, the insurance company uses that transcript against you, and they're like, "Well, she's lying because she didn't report this in my insurance adjuster claim. She didn't talk. Look what the recorded statement says. Now all of a sudden she's got all these other problems." So insurance adjusters use those recorded statements against you in your case. So it's better to, if you're hurt in a car accident, don't talk to the insurance adjusters about your injuries at all. In fact, just get a lawyer to handle all of that for you, because your injuries are ongoing. You really don't know how bad you're hurt. So typically, sometimes you do an MRI a few months later and you got like some disc herniations, or you got something going on, a torn ligament, a torn shoulder, torn labrum, whatever it is. But you didn't make those complaints to the adjuster in the beginning. So now they're going to use that against you. So the safest thing is to just have a lawyer deal with it, and don't talk to the insurance companies about your injuries. You want to talk, you can tell them, "I'm going to only talk about my property damage with you. I've been advised to not talk about my injury claim," and then let the lawyers deal with it, because we know how to get the most from the insurance companies. How long should it take to settle a car accident case? How long should it take to settle a car accident case? So that's a good question. It just depends. I've had cases settle within a month, 6 months, to cases that settle 3 years. Really, sometimes the more complex the case, the more serious the injuries, and we're talking serious money in the millions. Those cases are usually drawn out, and you're gonna have to fight for a couple of years or more, because the stakes are so high. Now, I've also had cases where it was just like clear liability, something really bad happened, someone might have died, someone got seriously injured, but the insurance policy was like 500,000 or 100,000. Well, those cases are going to be quick, because it's like the insurance is, the insurance limit's already capped out. They know they messed up, and they're just going to pay you out quick. So the ones that pay out really quick, it's really like kind of small insurance policies, medium insurance policies with serious injury. Those typically get paid out quicker. But I would say on average, I would say the typical soft tissue kind of rear ender case that most people go through, I would say 6 months is like the good average that those cases last. So it just depends on how complex the case is. What's we got here? Will a lawyer help settle my case faster? Yes. Well, depends. I would say, will a lawyer might help you settle a case faster? I would say, honestly, from what I see with other people that are like trying to do this on their own, they don't realize that there's a lot that goes into it. As far as they just think it's okay. Here's my medical bill. Submit them to the insurance company, get a check. That's not how it goes. You got to make the insurance companies, they want to know what your health insurance paid for the bill. If you have Medi-Cal, you're going to have to pull a Medi-Cal lien from the government and Medicare. There's a lot more that goes into it. So I would say it's a bad idea to try to represent yourself, because you end up getting less money and you end up doing a lot of work that you don't need to do. And it takes longer. So I would say it's better to get a lawyer, and because we're going to get you more that you wouldn't have done on your own, and you're not going to have to do anything except take care of your health. So it just always makes sense to have an attorney take care of this stuff. Let's see here. How long should it take car insurance companies? Can insurance companies spy on you after a car accident? Yes, and they often do. So I've had numerous times where clients, we always advise them, if you're making a claim for injuries, you got to watch your social media presence, because if you're out there doing CrossFit, doing martial arts, and mountain climbing, and you're claiming that your life's messed up because of an accident, they're looking at that stuff because when they have that evidence and that videos of you on social media or pictures that appear that you're looking fine, working out, all that stuff, they will use anything that they can to devalue your claim. It doesn't mean the reality is that it doesn't mean that you're not in pain anymore. People try to move on with their lives. They still want to keep part of their activities, but it doesn't mean that you're not hurt. You're just doing what you can to keep your purpose and keep living. But the insurance companies will still use that. So you want to make sure you really watch your social media presence when you're in an accident. Let's see here. What's up, Greg? The biggest red flag when choosing a lawyer. I think that when you're choosing a lawyer, for me, the biggest red flag is if they do everything. If they do personal injury, they do family law, they do criminal law, they do, contract law, business law. The jack of all trades lawyers, I think that's a big red flag when you go to them because you really can't be really that good if you're doing that much different stuff. The more you spend time and niche down your practice area and you're an expert at that and you go deep, there's a deep understanding of personal injury law and litigation. You've done different types of personal injury cases. I believe that those are the best lawyers to go to because that's what they do on a day-to-day basis. That's what they specialize in. They've seen a lot. When you have lawyers that have done different things, I think that's a red flag. And I've seen cases just get blown apart because they hired a lawyer that does different things. He thinks he knows what he's doing, but he doesn't. Personal injury lawyers, it's not just that we have a deep expert knowledge of what we in that field. Like we know the adjusters, we know how to get through the system. We know the defense lawyers. We know the right experts to hire. There's so much more than just being a lawyer and doing different things. You got to really have someone that specializes in personal injuries. So that's a big red flag. If you see this guy does a bunch of different areas of law, I don't think it's a good idea to hire someone like that. Also, look at how big they are. I hate to say it, but I know because I started off as a smaller solo practice, and if you're a solo attorney and you only have like a handful of files, that's fine. But if you go in their office, they got like one or two people, and they got 100 files. They're never returning their phone calls. They look like they're running a messy operation. That's also a red flag. You want to make sure you have a firm that has the resources to paralegal support, litigation support, attorneys to push your case forward. So make sure they have a proper staffing to handle your files. So typically I see that more in smaller towns, especially in Stockton. Like there's a lot of guys out there that jack of all trades lawyers. Just they don't really run their practice like a business, and they're not organized and systematic. We've all been guilty of that when we're scaling, but you need to find someone that's got their operation in order for sure, because those things matter. The insurance companies know if they're dealing with a sloppy law firm. So if they're not getting back to you with phone calls, the lawyer should be checking in with you at least once a month. Someone needs to be checking in on the status of your case at least once a month. So you don't hear anything for a long time. Probably a good idea. If he's not talking to you over a month, probably not updating the insurance adjusters right, probably not working up your case. So you need to get at least like a contact at least once a month. So the lawyer's not communicating with you, or someone from the firm is not communicating with you. That's a bad sign. Let's see. Can I switch law firms if I don't like the one I have? Yes. Yes, you have a right to fire your lawyer. And say you're not getting the communication or the service you don't want, or service you're not getting the service you want. you feel like they're not handling your case right, you can switch lawyers. The only thing that happens is that when the file gets transferred to the new lawyer, the other lawyer will probably put a attorney lien in. So it means an attorney fee lien. So basically, any time they spent or any cost they incurred litigating your case, the new lawyer will have to reimburse that lawyer for time and cost. So the good news is that that doesn't come out of your end. So say you fire a lawyer and then you go to our firm, and once the case settles, the agreement is that the settlement fees are not going to get cut from on your end. The attorney fees that I earn, I'll have to share with the other lawyer. So you really there's no disadvantage to switching lawyers. If the reason's right and they're not handling your file right, and you want to switch lawyers, there's no downside to you. The attorneys are the ones that got to think, is it worth taking your case? So I have to pay the other guy off. So you can't switch other lawyers. What's going on? I have a lot of friends on my personal page. Send me cases. Let's see here. Does a pre-existing injury ruin your case? No. So a lot of times what happens is you get in an accident and you get all this imaging done. Your lawyer sends you to different doctors to get your medical treatment. Sometimes like you didn't even know that you had something going on before. If we all did MRIs right now, we probably, especially as we age, we probably have some small herniated disc, something going on, maybe a torn ligament, you had no idea. And that's normal. It's part of the human kind of aging process, right? And there's this doctrine in personal injury law called the eggshell doctrine. And what it means is that you take your plaintiff as you find them. So if you get rear-ended and you had some sort of pre-existing injury, but the accident made it worse, the insurance companies are obviously going to blame. They're going to say, well, this person had a messed up back before the incident. Even the imaging we saw looks like the doctor said it's degenerative changes. But what happens is people don't understand that when they're in an accident, those degenerative changes, they were asymptomatic, and accident can make them symptomatic. So although you had pre-existing disc herniations in the MRI after you got in your accident, and the doctor even says they're degenerative findings, the fact that you have pain there now means that that accident most likely made those symptoms from asymptomatic to symptomatic. So pre-existing injuries don't ruin your case at all. It's very common. The insurance companies like to blame that. They'll always say something's pre-existing. That's the common defense they have. But as lawyers, we know how to get around that. We know that the law is, it doesn't matter if you have a pre-existing injury or not. You take me as you take your victim as you find them. It's not, that's you made the symptoms worse. Maybe I didn't need a surgery until the accident, and now I'm in a lot of pain because you made my symptoms. So you made those symptoms symptomatic now. So pre-existing injuries won't kill your case at all. What's this here? Dr. Garcia, how you doing? All right, cool. Is there anything I shouldn't say to their car insurance after an accident? Yeah, try not to talk to them at all if you can, but I would say focus on your property damage. And if they ask if you're injured, say, yes, I am injured, but I've been advised to not speak about the specifics of my injury by my attorney. You can just tell them that, because nothing really good comes out of telling them how bad you're hurt. Like, it really doesn't. And then you're not under any obligation to give them details. And so for example, the guy that was responsible for your accident, the other person's insurance company, you're not under contract with them, so you don't have to tell them everything. If they ask about your injuries, just keep it general. I'm in pain. I'm hurt. I've been advised by my lawyer to not speak to you about my injuries at all. Deal with the property damage stuff, because I know people get frustrated with their cars and having to get repaired. So you really want to minimize talking to the insurance companies as much as you can. Property damage, it's one of those things that you need to get your car fixed. People want to get it done. So I don't mind the property damage conversation, but the injuries, you should not talk about your injuries with the other person's insurance company, especially yours. So, um, yeah, there's a lot more to go into that, but you want to be very careful with that. Is there anything I shouldn't say to the car? Dr. Garcia, I'm doing good. Thanks for the referrals. How do you handle cases when they get involved in a second accident while treating for the first accident? Oh man, that's a good one. So we just had a case recently where someone got what happened in this one? Yeah, so someone signed up for us for a car accident, and like 2 days after signing up with us, they got in another car accident. That stuff does happen. So as a lawyer, what we do is this: we're always looking at, and I'll just be transparent. We want to look at which one was the worst accident. So if the first one had a lot more property damage and there was there was more force involved and the insurance is better, we'll tell the client, let's just focus on this one, and then we'll have to deal with the second one later. We won't represent them in the second one. We'll focus on the one that has more serious property damage, more serious injury, and more insurance. We'll focus on that one. And the second one that happened, we're going to have to address that with the insurance companies and defense lawyers later, because they're going to jump on anything that happens. They're going to try to blame. What they'll do is they'll try to blame the second accident instead of the first accident. So if I'm going up on a case in the first accident, they're going to say, well, look at that second accident. This probably made their injuries worse. They'll try to blame that. So usually you have to be very careful talking to the doctors in those situations. What we've seen that's helpful is, say you're going to a doctor for your first accident and the second accident happens. The insurance companies are going to find out about it. And if you don't mention it to your doctors, they try to make you look like you're a liar or you're not credible. So we typically tell our clients, listen, you got to make sure the doctor knows there was a second accident. They're going to find out anyways, but let the doctor know you're not hurt. It was the first accident. The second one was I'm not hurt at all. It's not, I'm fine. It's all about this first accident. So it helps with credibility, in my opinion. Some other lawyers might have different advisements on that. It does throw a little wrench in your case, but it's nothing we haven't dealt with. It's good to always note the second accident and just not make kind of like make everything on that first one, the one that everyone's focused on. But it's good to kind of acknowledge that the second one happened, so no one looks like we're hiding anything. Okay. What if you were rear-ended but pushed into a car and you're the only one hurt? So the very common situation, you're rear-ended and then you hit someone in front of you. The person that you hit in front of you, they're gonna make a claim it's all about who caused the incident. So it's not your fault because you got rear-ended. And you got pushed into this person. So the main causation was that person that rear-ended you. So if the attorneys from the vehicle that you hit make a claim against your car, the insurance companies are all going to point fingers at the person really responsible. So you don't have to worry about that too much. What else is here? All right, one more question. Let's see. I don't know if I can scroll up. I don't see anything else popping up here. So from Dr. Ed Garcia on my personal page, I'm not up to date on any Uber Lyft coverage, but is there anything notable with them in terms of coverage since the patients aren't the drivers? Since the patients are the drivers. I'm not up to date on Uber Lyft coverage, but is there anything notable with them in terms of coverage? So say like we have a lot of Uber Lyft cases here. If there's two different types of clients in an Uber Lyft case. There's actually Uber drivers you can represent, Lyft drivers, or you can represent the actual passengers. So in this situation where you're driving in an Uber or Lyft and you're a passenger, and say the Uber driver runs a red light and he's responsible for your injuries, as a passenger, you're going to make a claim against Uber. You're going to make a claim against Uber and the driver for your injuries that they caused. They're going to have, the good thing about Uber and Lyft is that they have commercial policies. So there's $1 million policy on that. So if you're seriously injured and you're got some bad stuff going on, or fracture, or you need a surgery, the good news is that insurance has big insurance, and they also have umbrella coverages too. So they don't just have $1 million coverage; they have coverage on top of that umbrella policy. So if something really bad happens, the good news is that there's a ton of insurance there. So typically those are big settlement cases. In a situation where say you're in an Uber and he's driving safe, but someone runs a red light and hits you, and it's not your Uber's fault. Also, the good news is that you have uninsured motorist coverage. So Uber protects the passengers and drivers under the uninsured motorist policy too. So say that guy that ran a red light has like no insurance or like minimal insurance, you get the max from that person, and then you can go after Uber and Lyft or the rest of it, or whatever injuries cover. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to shut down. Thanks everyone for joining. Thanks for your questions. Again, if you have any other questions, just send me an email or call me. Thank you for everyone that sent us business. Thank you, doctor, for taking care of us and sending us clients. We'll make sure to keep you in mind. If anyone that needs a personal injury lawyer, we're take cases all over California. We're doing a lot of clients in Stockton and down here in Los Angeles too. So thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it. All right. Okay.